Consider for a moment how he treats you behind closed doors is different than how he treats you in public. Why? Because if the public saw how he treated you on a day-to-day basis, they would be appalled. There would be a lot of people that would actually come to your aid and assistance if they saw how awful he was being. But your friends don't see it, your family doesn't see it, people in your life don't see it because he's hiding. He's a coward. He's hiding behind the doors of his life to be able to abuse you behind private. This is what happens inside of narcissistic abuse, where you get belittled and beat down. Can a narcissist be willing to change? So many people are wondering and questioning, what about narcissists? Can they change? What does this look like? Can my narcissist change? And so many people get confused just on social media wondering, hey, can my narcissist change? Now, me being on social media, Lee Hammock being on social media, other self-aware narcissists being on social media also provide some of the confusion. Let's just be real. Some of the confusion comes down to the fact of people looking at me and saying, wait a second, you changed, you're different, what's different about you? Sometimes I'll get confusion, and sometimes I'll get people accusing me of different things, of being like, well, why are you the only one that can change? How come you are so special? All of this aspects. And it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with me being a certain type of narcissist or a certain way or a certain thing that got unfolded. But when we come down to this topic of a narcissist changing, it comes down to a couple simple principles and simple things that I need you to understand. Now, first off, inside of this aspect of narcissist changing, you have to understand that majority of narcissists don't care. Like, majority of narcissists don't care about you, don't care about themselves, don't care about the fact about them changing or transforming their lives at all. They don't think that anything is wrong with them. They don't think there's anything that they need to shift or adjust or modify because they're already content and happy with who they are. Now, let's dive into that for a second. Happy with who they are? There's a piece of it that a narcissist is content with his current life. Now, that doesn't mean that he is filled with joy. He's filled with purpose, and he's filled with this piece of, okay, I actually belong here. Sometimes it's this piece of, I'm going off of the constant highs, going from one person to another, going off of one manipulation to another. Narcissists aren't always finding this piece of centeredness or joy or like true happiness, but typically just flitting from one thing to another, one high to another high, one addiction to another addiction, one person to another person, trying to fulfill and trying to get filled a void that's in their lives. Now, sometimes when people look at narcissism and narcissists as a whole, they start to view this aspect of being, oh, maybe they're just in love with themselves. And that could be the furthest from the truth. Most people think that narcissists are just self-consumed and self-absorbed. And while that's true to a point, there's also the point that it's not self-love. It's not this piece of infatuation or love or care about themselves, simply because if a narcissist had this aspect of self-love for himself, he would actually work on changing who he actually is and how he actually shows up. So first and foremost, I need you to understand the majority of narcissists don't even care. They don't even see that there's something wrong, that something needs to be fixed. And oftentimes when people try to bring up different things of, hey, this is something you're doing, they're trying to avoid, trying to gaslight, trying to manipulate, trying to run away from any accountability, any responsibility. Does this sound like someone that's in your life right now? Does it sound like someone who's trying to avoid accountability and responsibility in your relationship right now? We see this all the time where you're hoping and thinking and praying and wondering, is he going to change? And oftentimes this will lead you to a place of being stuck in a trauma bond. This will leave you stuck inside the relationship thinking and praying and hoping that he's going to change, but not actually seeing any change. Okay, well, what about this fact of maybe you just need to get him aware? That's a huge one. A lot of times people think, well, awareness is the first step, and it is. If a narcissist could be aware, then you also have the piece of, okay, maybe he wants to change now. There might be a difference in how he shows up. There might be a difference in the feeling, the emotions, the ideas, the responses. And so what happens inside of this is people lock on to the fact of, I just need to make sure he understands. If he would understand, then he would change. The hard part too is you also have a lot of narcissists that are aware. And again, it goes back to the first point, they just don't care. They're aware of the toxicity. They're aware that they manipulate. They're aware that they cheat. And the fact of the matter is they keep doing it. They're operating off a different set of morals, a different set of standards than what you have and what you currently uphold to. This is the hard part because people think, well, if I just got him aware, then he would care. Well, the problem is he doesn't care, which is why even if he's aware, a lot of times there isn't this piece of change or transformation. The other piece is narcissists always change for different people. They change for how they act to you, change for how they act to their mom, to their dad, to different family members, to coworkers, to their boss. Majority of times, narcissists are not the same person to everybody. Oftentimes, they're like a chameleon, changing and adjusting and adapting behaviors and aspects and things about their life to appear different inside society. Consider for a moment how he treats you behind closed doors is different than how he treats you in public. Why? Because if the public saw how he treated you on a day-to-day basis, they would be appalled. There would be a lot of people that would actually come to your aid and assistance if they saw how awful he was being. But your friends don't see it, your family doesn't see it, people in your life don't see it because he's hiding. He's a coward. He's hiding behind the doors of his life to be able to abuse you behind private. This is what happens inside of narcissistic abuse, where you get belittled and beat down. This happens so many times when I talk to women that own businesses. Like they're running companies, multi-million-dollar companies, businesses from small to large to huge, whatever it might be, and they're leading teams. And they get to this place where they start to think, I can't actually share this. I can't communicate this. I don't know who to turn to, simply because if they started to reveal the fact that they're in a relationship with an abuser, they think, what's it going to do to my credibility? What's this going to do to how I look as a businesswoman? We see this all the time where they're struggling with it and struggling then to make decisions in business based on how her partner's treating her behind closed doors. The narcissist in your life, you're wondering, is he going to change? Or is he even willing to change? Or is he even capable of change? All of these are great questions, and we need to preface it simply with one aspect of honesty. Honesty is the big pivotal factor. And people don't like to hear this. They want to hear there's a magic pill. They want to hear there's a certain phrase you can say. They want to hear if you send them to this intensive or this experience or this journey, then they'll magically get healed. Everybody's looking for the quick fix. Guess what? There is no quick fix. There is no quick hack. There is no shortcut to transformation. Because no transformation is going to happen without there being honesty, without there being truth of the situation. Now, the problem is when you're inside a relationship with a toxic, narcissistic, abusive person, he's not willing to actually be honest. Let's look at that. He hasn't been honest with you about his feelings, hasn't been honest with you about the emotional side, hasn't been honest with you about the cheating, hasn't been honest with you about how he's actually feeling. There's so many levels of lies and manipulation that's happened inside the relationship, keeping you confused, keeping you lost. You're looking for a narcissist that would actually transform, not just change. Not just modify his behaviors, not just change around other people, but actually transform. Transformation cannot happen without truth. Can't. It's impossible. Just trying to think through, how do I go from point A to point B? Well, if you don't know what point A is, you have no shot at getting to point B. If you say, hey, this is where I want you to drive to, but you have no clue where you are right now because you're lost, great, but it doesn't help you. This is what's happening inside this piece of transformation. If you do not know where you currently are, nothing changes. Now, break this into the piece of narcissism, and I need you to understand, if he doesn't care where he's at, if he's unwilling to acknowledge where he's at, if he's unwilling to be honest about where he's at, no change is going to happen. No transformation is actually going to happen from the inside out. Everything that you see is going to be behavioral modification, changing and shifting different pieces of him to appear better, to look like he's a better person, to mold and adapt to your version of reality, when in reality, he's not actually changing. He's just modifying quick things. What we're looking for is a narcissist that will actually transform, and he won't do that unless you have truth. This truth has to come down to him being honest about his current situation, dealing with the facts of the abuse, dealing with the facts of how he's showing up. This means we're not stepping into feelings, we're not stepping into the emotions, we're not stepping into all this other aspect. We're just dealing with what's the cold hard evidence that actually demonstrates you showing up or you not showing up. If he's not willing to acknowledge this, he's not going to be willing to acknowledge narcissism. He's not going to be willing to actually change, grow, and develop who he actually is. There's no transformation that's possible. What I show in my life is a consistent dedication to transform. Me changing and growing, developing who I am today to become different tomorrow, to become different the next day. Who I am now compared to 3 years ago, massively different because of the dedication, the work that I put in every single day. But let me tell you this, I don't do this for you. I don't do this for him. I don't do this for my wife. I don't do this for anyone else in my life. I do this for me because I know that I have to grow, change, develop to not become the monster that I was. Because that's not the person that I want to show up as. The person I want to show up as, I'm continuing to grow and develop and become. So when I show this and when I talk through and when I tell about my transformation, how I've changed, how I've grown, how I've developed over the past several years, it's not for you to have hope about the narcissism. It's not for you to have hope about the toxic guy in your life. It's not. It's to give you hope for you. That you can stop in the dead-end relationship that you're in, that you can face the facts of your situation, that you can realize that you can transform your life. Instead of being used and abused on this earth, you can actually grow and expand like God actually created you to be. Instead of being stuck in this relationship, hoping and praying and thinking that he's going to change, you could actually transform your life. You could change the trajectory of your life. Instead of holding on to the question of, will he change? How about you? When are you going to start looking at your life and realize the life you're currently living is not what you wanted at all? If you look back at who you were before this relationship and who you are now, it's almost like you can't tell the difference. You're like, there's so many pieces that have shifted and changed. I can't even notice who I am anymore. Like the difference of who I was versus who I am now, like it's unparalleled. There's so many differences. Like you get confused, you get lost, you get wondering, wait a second, why am I walking on eggshells around this when I never used to tolerate this at all? Why don't I even seem to hold boundaries now when before I used to be strong at this? Why am I doubting my work decisions when before I could make them in confidence and clarity? And simply because you're stuck in a toxic relationship, trauma bond, confused, lost, afraid, alone, in the fog, stuck, all of these different pieces. And you're holding out wondering, will he change? What about you? When are you going to see your current situation, the facts of where you currently are, and invest in you, in your transformation, your healing? You can't force another person to transform. You can't force another person to change, but you can transform you. And as you rise, he has the opportunity of either rising with you and becoming better, or he can move on and find someone else to manipulate and abuse because that's all he's been doing to you. If you resonate with this and you want help in transforming your life, reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to help you move forward in your healing process today.